In this video, we will look at the issue books sequence diagrams implementation. Here is the code in user interface for issuing books. So when the user presses 3, that is a command for issuing a book, control comes here, and we call the get token method to enter the ID of the member and put it into the member ID field of request object. Then call the search membership of library to see whether this member is really a member, whether this member ID corresponds to a real member. And if the result code is bad, then we display an error message, and that's the end of it. Otherwise, what we do is we repeatedly ask for book IDs and put them into the book ID field of the request object and send those request objects one by one to the library through the issue book method. And if the book could be issued, we display an error message, a message that it was issued and what the due date is. Otherwise, we display an error. And then we do this as long as the user says yes for this query, issue more books. Obviously, what we need to do is look at search membership and issue book of the library class. Search membership is extremely simple. Here is it. Here is that method. Getting a request object which contains the member ID. It pulls the member ID and calls the member list class's search method to check if the member is really, whether the member ID is really belonging to an actual member. If the return value is null, we return an error saying no such member. Otherwise, we set the code saying the operation was completed and give the fields of the member through the result object. And we need to look at issue book. This request object contains the book ID. So if the book is not, if the book ID is not valid, we return an error message. Of course, what we do is we search the catalog. The catalog will tell whether the book is there or not. Otherwise, we know that the book is fine, but we also need to figure out whether the member is still the same member that it was before. Actually, at least the member ID is valid. So we look for the member in the member list class. And if there is no such member, we return an error message. Otherwise, we copy the member fields into the result object and notice two calls. One is a call to the issue method of book, and the other one is a call to the issue method of member. If either one of them fails, the whole thing fails. So we will take a look at those two methods. But if both were okay, came out okay, we will return an okay result code and put the fields of the book into result. Then let's look at the book class and member class and see what the issue method does. So here is the issue method. I mean, we are calling the issue method of a book. So let's look at that. Here is the issue method. What it does is it creates a due date. That is the complicated part. So we get a due date, or we create a due date and set it to 1 month after today's date, and set it to 11:59 p.m., 11:59 seconds actually. So we add 1 month and then set the date or the time to 11:59 p.m. And we also set the borrowed by field to the member. Then the member class has the issue method here. Given a book object, it adds the book to the list of books borrowed by the member. So books borrowed is a list of books maintained for each member, and we also log the transaction. So we create a transaction object with the book title, and then the operation was the book was issued. So that is going to the list of transactions maintained for the member.